Hello, and welcome to the Film Pulse Podcast. This is episode number 379. My name is Adam Patterson. With me today, we got Kevin Rakestraw. Hey, Kevin.
Hello.
This week on the show, we'll be wrapping our minds around Charlie Kaufman's latest I'm Thinking of Ending Things. We'll also be going over some we're watching on the watch list and this week's new releases on VOD and Blu-ray. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Please remember to review us on iTunes if you get a moment. That would be super helpful. Just one bit of housekeeping news to go over. New Say by the 90s is out now, so you can find that on your podcast platform of choice. iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever one you like. It's out now. We talk about August martial arts action movies, including Double Impact, Hard Target, Surf Ninjas, and Only the Strong. Really fun episode, so check that out. With that, I think we can dive straight into our review. I'm Thinking of Ending Things, directed by Charlie Kaufman. I have a synopsis here. Nothing is as it seems when a young woman experiencing misgivings about her new boyfriend joins him on a road trip to meet his parents at the remote farm. This is on Netflix, so you can check it out if you have a Netflix subscription. Kevin, we'll start with you. What were your initial impressions of I'm Thinking of Ending Things?
Oh, initial impressions. This, from the outset, it for me, it was a little bit grating because it's heavy dialogue. Just tons of dialogue.
That opening sequence of them in the car, man.
Just a lot of dialogue that I wasn't really getting into, to be honest. And the whole kind of flashing to the janitor very early on made it, to me, very apparent as to what was going on.
I knew immediately.
So,
immediately.
the entirety of it just felt like a pointless exercise. And then he gets cute with the subtle changes in what she's wearing and all that shit, and I'm just like, I don't care. Like it felt as though like he was trying to make up for the fact that like, okay, I have to keep things like somewhat visually interesting because there's really nothing going on here outside of like we're in this man's memory, his psyche, whatever the hell you want to call it.
Yeah, we're in his thoughts.
And it's just, I don't know. Again, it's just a pointless exercise to me. There were moments I thought that once, like within the script, like moments where he was kind of taking it seriously, and he was kind of getting that like this loneliness, this inherent sadness of this man. And when he brushed up against that poignancy, it worked for me. But a lot of it just did not work at all. It just felt like a sad sack story where it was like, oh, woe is me. My life is awful. And you're just like, oh, okay. And then, they try and tie it up at the end, or, the through line of like, oh, you got to find the sympathy. It's like, yeah, I get it. I get it. It's just too showy for me.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I watched this last night, and it came out on Netflix Friday, so there was a lot of impressions and things that I started seeing on various social media platforms, and I was pretty hyped for this. I was like, oh man, this is Charlie Kaufman doing this kind of psychological horror movie. Yeah, I'm all in, boy. And a lot of the people, like my Letterboxd friends and people on Twitter, are really hyping it up. So I was pretty amped up for this. And I gotta say, I'm right there with you. Unfortunately, it just wasn't doing it for me. And this is one of these movies where I feel like a lot of people are praising it when in fact they feel like it's just something that they should be doing. Like, I'm supposed to like this, right? So I'm going to say that this is like a work of genius. But
and I also wondered too, given our circumstances, with everything that's happening in the world and where we are, being stuck in the house and stuff, and not wanting to go out because of a deadly pandemic that, could kill you and your loved ones. I wonder how much that plays into it. Like, just, yes, I like it. I don't have a whole lot going on in the outside world. So yeah, I like this.
Yeah, I mean, I thought about this too, and I'm thinking like sort of, at least for me, I sort of feel the opposite, where this movie is so morose and so depressing that like I'm feeling like this is not what I need right now. I don't need a movie about this guy who is thinking about killing himself and reliving his life and all of this stuff. Like that's just not sort of what I'm in the market for right now. So I'm also wondering like how much where I'm at mentally, how much that plays into what I took away from this movie and my opinions on it. Now, I think that Kaufman does do some interesting things here. It's not all bad. I liked moments of it, but I think just overall, I found it to be, as you said, pretty grating. Like, a lot of people are talking about like, oh, you got to rewatch it. You catch all this extra stuff when you rewatch it, all these like little clues and hints and things. And I'm just like, I can't imagine rewatching this. Like, there's no way I'm going to sit through this again.
And I think the thing, like, there's a part of me that appreciates that there's this open to interpretation thing as to like the young woman played by Jessie Buckley,
especially at the end.
Is she just an amalgamation of all of these things from his childhood or from his life throughout, between the books and the poetry and everything? Because a lot of what she does is just, regurgitating things that exist.
Yeah, I never got the sense that she was real. Like, I thought that she was an amalgamation of what he longed for, like what he wanted in his life. Like the life he could have had. That's sort of how I interpreted it. But that is the great thing. Like, there's a lot of takeaways from this movie. There's a lot of things that you can discuss and sort of try to pick apart and dive into when it comes to how you interpret this movie.
But I think that for me is there's no point in that. Like, there's, like, to what end?
Right.
Like, that's not a fruitful thing for me to, try and question this person that doesn't exist in someone's mind that also doesn't exist. There's just no point to it for me. And the thing that got me the most is, I think what I wanted more from this movie is I wanted some more, like a more heartfelt tenderness to it. There's a bit too much like quirky comedy for me that I think undermines a lot of what this movie's trying to do. Because a whole lot of the, visiting the parents is that, where it's like quirky, things aren't quite right. And to me, it felt like it just undermined the entire thing. And then to go through that kind of escapade and then to try and come out on the other side of like, okay, now we're getting into emotions and this man's life. And it's just like, no, I don't think so. It doesn't work. I don't think. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I think if it was more earnest, more serious, and maybe a little bit more sentimental, rather than having the kind of odd comedy, dark humor in there, maybe that there would have been some more like emotional resonance with it. But yeah, like at the end when things start to wrap up and you see where things are going, I didn't really feel any kind of emotional heft from it. Like I wasn't connected to any of the characters from the beginning, so I didn't really have that kind of resonance with what was playing out. Now, I will say that I did enjoy the quirky moments with Toni Collette and David Thewlis because they're amazing, and I want Toni Collette just needs an Oscar. Just give her the damn Oscar already, because
Give
she's great. She's great in this. Jesse Plemons, who plays Jake, he's great in this too. I wish him all the best as well. He deserves an amazing career. And you know, I like some of the stuff I thought was kind of fun. I liked the whole movie within the movie thing that they did there for a moment, even though I feel like they lingered on it a little bit too long. I liked the whole Robert Zemeckis thing. I thought that was really funny. I learned that the Robert Zemeckis thing, I just saw Netflix send out a tweet today that said that Charlie Kaufman didn't include a name of the director or anything in the script, so the editor, the supervising editor, just added that as a placeholder, and he thought it was hilarious, so he reached out to Robert Zemeckis and got permission to use that. It's actually the end credits of the movie Contact.
I do have to say that, like, and I think a big thing that turned me off completely, like, maybe I would have hung in there if not for the end. Because not only I didn't really like the way that it wrapped up or where it went, but it also got the movie aesthetically just got very ugly at the end to me. It just looked awful, which I think is like what just soured me completely for everything else.
Interesting. I didn't
like all the makeup stuff was bad.
Oh,
everything
that.
was just bad. It looked terrible. It all looked fucking terrible.
Yeah, I wasn't into that, the whole Oklahoma thing. I liked this. I thought that the scenes at the school looked good, like the outside, like when he's in the truck outside and in the parking lot and stuff. I think that looked fine. I liked the idea of using the I don't know if it was like a 4:3 aspect ratio. I liked that aspect of it. It was a 1:3:1 aspect ratio. So yeah, I liked that. I think that for me, the end, which is obviously the big point of contention for a lot of conversations, the tonal shift that it takes, really just wasn't on board with it at that point, because I feel like it just didn't fit, at least for me. Now, also, I think it should be noted that this is based on a novel by Ian Reid, and I didn't read the novel. I know that it's pretty close to the movie. I think I'm pretty sure it's about a guy who's reliving or thinking about his life before he decides to commit suicide.
My wife read the book, and she says that it's nothing like the book.
Okay.
But she did read it a while ago. But from her memory, the book was much darker.
I'm wondering if the book had more to do with like the suicide aspect than the like relationship aspect. Because it seems like the whole relationship aspect is something that's like that Charlie Kaufman is definitely something that he likes to explore in his movies.
And I think that's what kind of put me at a distance, because you know right from the outset that she's not real. And you're just like, I don't know, you know, there's no intrigue there for me, because I'm like, okay, she's just a collection of things that he's read.
Yeah. I wasn't sure from the on. It really wasn't until like I had questions. I was questioning it, but I didn't really kind of make the decision that I thought that she was not real until maybe the Pauline Kael thing. Like when she started like reciting, because you see that Pauline Kael book, and then when they're talking about Woman Under the Influence, and I don't know if I didn't like look it up, but it sounded like that she was just reciting the Pauline Kael review of Woman Under the Influence. And I'm just like, okay, that sort of solidified it for me. Now, obviously, there are tons and tons of other little hints and clues earlier, like the slippers and the picture on the wall and all of that other stuff, and the various people who are calling her and all of that. And the fact that she doesn't have a name, like the fact that she goes by multiple,
changing.
yeah,
And it keeps changing. And it comes like really the only thing that you have is like, okay, is this woman made up of like all of the failed relationships in his life, or is it just again a collection of things that he's read, you know, ponytail, that type of thing, or is this like him rehashing this, like visiting the family? Is that like that an important moment in his life that he fucked up somehow, and he's constantly replaying it before his death? Like, but to me, like, there's just no point to any of that. Like, I'm not interested in parsing what the situation is.
Well, I think that's the thing with movies that are abstract enough that there's a lot of room for interpretation. There has to be that initial hook, that initial like baseline premise that would result in you wanting to, decompress it
like
and dive into it.
The puzzle needs to be welcoming. All the facets of the puzzle need to be welcoming in order for me to be like, okay, yeah, let me look into this. Let me tumble this in my mind a little bit, see what I can come up with.
Mm-hmm.
But here, it seems like there's so many possibilities, and they all are for this lonely janitor that I don't really know anything about outside of like. But again, memory is not. It's not solidified, so I don't know, like, these memories that we're going through, like, they could all be completely fake. It just could be a fabrication. It's not a welcoming puzzle to me. I'm just not interested.
For me, it was just too dry. Like I really struggled to stay connected with this as it was progressing. I mean,
I did.
even like that opening scene where they're in the car for like, I don't know, 15 minutes or something, and just having this conversation. Like the conversation itself was not hooking me. Like I was not engaged in their conversation.
Well, and I think that's the biggest issue for me, I think, is that it's just so dialogue heavy. And again, you're undermining most of it with this quirky comedy bits. I mean, I did like some of like the visual aspects. So like when she goes down into the basement and looks up and it's like snowing inside. Like I could have used like some more of that. Like things to just throw me off a little bit, visually speaking.
Mm-hmm. Like
instead of trying to throw me off with dialogue.
I liked the dog, Jimmy.
Yeah, it's a good dog.
Jimmy was great, and I liked the animation.
Is there a rule now where like there's got to be animation and everything?
I don't know.
They were doing lobbying work for animators. You're in every documentary now. For I don't know for what fucking reason, but you're in all documentaries.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're just slipping into narrative film too.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm really glad that it seems to be making a strong connection with a lot of people. I think that's great. I think that any movie that evokes this much discussion and thought is a good thing. But just on a sort of basic level, it really just didn't connect with me, unfortunately. Any final thoughts on I'm thinking of ending things? I'm probably gonna have to put a spoiler warning ahead at the beginning of this, just because
it's weird because like you would think that, but at the same time, like the movie spoils itself like immediately. At least I thought. As soon as she looks up and he's in the apartment and he's saying the stuff, and then he's talking about, oh, the kids do it at school every year. You're like, okay, he's the janitor. Gotcha. None of this is real. None of this. There's no reason for any of this. So that's great that we got that. We threw that on the table 15 minutes in. I still got an hour and 45 minutes left.
Yeah, that was the other thing is I felt like it was a little bit too long. Like it overstayed its welcome a little bit. I think they could have truncated some of those car ride conversations down a bit.
This is such a fucking windshield wipers. Oh God.
I did like, actually, I liked the windshield wiper thing because how they would keep the sound going when they would cut to the janitor, you'd still be able to hear the windshield wipers going. I liked that.
Okay. All right.
I did watch this with my dad. My dad's visiting, and
He hated it, didn't he? Did he?
he just did not. He was just like not under. He really struggled with it. He
I could just imagine
he was really
your
excited
dad
too.
fuming, just fucking fuming,
He was
just
really
mounting.
he was really excited to watch this too, and boy was he let down.
Because he's got that like tea kettle frustration
Yeah.
that just builds, that it just fucking whistles. Oh man, I wish I was there. But I can see it. I can see it. I can visualize it in my head, and that visualization is so much better than I'm thinking of ending things.
At the end, he just goes, "Explain it to me."
I could see the look on his face too. Oh, and that little gas, that little expression that he does.
Yeah, there were several moments during the movie that he was just. I looked over and he's just staring at me with that with that look.
Oh, I miss watching a movie with him.
Yeah, it was that made it a little more entertaining. All right, let's go
Yeah.
ahead and give this a score, Kevin. What are you gonna give? I'm thinking of ending things.
Oh man, like a 5.
I'm. This is a tough one. I think that I'm kind of right down the middle as well. So I'm like maybe 5.5 for this. Yeah. Again,
Yeah.
I'm glad that it is really connecting with a lot of people, and I hope that it connects with you. There's certainly a lot to unpack with this movie. There's a lot of secrets and little things, and I think that it's the type of movie that you either get a lot out of it or you don't get anything, and unfortunately, I'm in sort of the latter category.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on and talk about someone we're watching on the watch list. Kevin, I think we'll start it with you this week.
Oh boy. Well, I watched a lot of bad stuff, so
Solid. Nice.
a lot of bad decisions. And just a lot of like just slapping on Netflix and be like, all right, let's watch this.
Let's go for it.
First thing you pick. And one of those was Cabin Fever. All right. So you're thinking, oh, Kevin watched Eli Roth, Cabin Fever.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. That's what I thought I watched. I didn't. Apparently they remade this movie.
What?
So I watched the remake, which is apparently like just a full-on, like very close to shot for shot, just same thing.
Oh, yeah. I forgot that they did this.
Which I didn't that they did that because I thought Eli Roth's movie was relatively new.
Yeah, 2002 was the original one, and the remake was 2016.
Yeah. So not sure why they did this. I know from this movie that I don't need to see the first one. I'm fine. But there is a part of me that's curious because the dialogue in this movie is it's really bad. It's just awful, right? And I am wondering if it's the same dialogue from the original.
I doubt it.
Because it doesn't make any sense. And a lot of the dialogue just seems like excuses to have sex scenes at just very weird times, like in the middle of like people dying. And just overall, like everything's bad, right? But they decide like, hey, this is a good spot for a sex scene, so let's do that. Which like the whole thing is ridiculous. It's just really stupid. It's awful. The acting is awful. The only thing that is good is like the effects work, like the gore. It's really good. It's disgusting. Like it's just a lot of skin falling off. and just a lot of blood, people coughing up blood and just oozing blood and all sorts of stuff. And it's disgusting. But just everything else is just atrocious.
Yeah, I don't know why they made the decision to remake that movie. It's bizarre.
And there's one time, like, early on, like, the two people are, like, they're swimming in the lake or whatever. This is before everything goes to shit. You know, they're swimming in the lake. They're talking to each other, doing a little bit of flirting. And it's just intercut with the other couple having sex. But for really, like, it'll just go back to them and just show them having sex for like a minute, and then it cuts back to the other couple, and it does that like 2 or 3 times, and then moves on with the movie. And it's like, okay, that was an excuse for some nudity. That was weird. And then later on, the same woman is like, everything's gone to hell. Everyone's dying. Everyone's getting affected. And she's like, oh, this is awful. This is the type of situation, like, the plane's going down. Everyone knows the plane is going down, and all you want to do is grab the guy next to you and fuck his brains out. And there's, of course, the guy standing there, and he's like, okay. He's like, his ears perk up a little bit, and he's like, all right. And then there's just a sex scene. Like, those two people have sex for some reason. And you're just like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, I don't remember any of that happening in the original one, so...
Come on.
So, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying you should go out and watch the original one, because I'm sure that, like, the overall narrative is still the same, but yeah, that's unfortunate that that happened.
It's so bad.
All right, and that is the 2016 Cabin Fever. Avoid that on Netflix and don't get fooled like Kevin.
I'm always getting fooled.
You're why, like, The Asylum exists.
I know. And it's only because of streaming services. I see the little thing and I'm like, oh yeah, all right.
All right. I saw The 5 Rules of Success. This is directed by Orson Oblowitz. This is a Fantasia Festival movie. This was the last one that I watched. It is a pretty good, sort of gritty story about this guy who gets out of prison on parole and decides that he is gonna use these 5 rules that he sort of came up with when he was in prison, and he's going to use these 5 rules to change his life and be a success. And he starts off getting a job as a delivery person at this restaurant, and then starts to work his way up, with the ultimate goal being to own his own restaurant. And it's the type of movie where you know that things are not going to end well for this guy, but you still he's an inherently sympathetic character. Like, he's a likable character, so you want him to succeed. You want to see him, make it. And you just know, like, the tone of the movie, you know that just horrible things are going to happen. So it's a good movie. It's at times a tough watch, but I would definitely recommend it. Orson Oblowitz is he did this movie Trespassers that came out a couple years ago, and I really hated it. But he also did The Queen of Hollywood Boulevard, which I didn't see, but I heard sort of mixed things about that as well. The style of Rules of Success it's got sort of a unique style to it. Lots of strobing in it, though. There is like a strobe warning at the beginning of the movie. It's not like overwrought with strobes. It's done in a sort of they pace the strobing, so it's not like overwhelming. But yeah, I would say check maybe a light recommend whenever this comes out. The 5 Rules of Success. There's definitely a lot of there's some social commentary in there as well, and the only problem I had with it mainly was like what happens at the end seems sort of shoehorned in. It didn't seem like a natural progression. It seemed a little strange. The motivations of the characters, I just wasn't buying what happened at the end. But yeah, other than that, it's pretty good. Again, it's called The Five Rules of Success.
I too watched a movie where a guy was released from prison, and that guy was Nicolas Cage.
Oh boy!
And the movie is A Score to Settle, 2019, directed by Sean Koo, who is the guy that directed Beautiful Boy, which I found out afterwards. I was pretty sure, like, because this is kind of a standard Nicolas Cage straight to VOD type movie that it's probably just directed by some random person. But no, it's like an actual director. So that was interesting to learn. So Nicolas Cage plays a mob enforcer, and he takes the rap for something that he didn't do to protect his boss, and he ends up serving 22 years in prison for it. And the only reason he's getting out is because he has some sort of weird disease where like he can't sleep. He's got insomnia real bad. And they tell him, like, before they let him out of prison, they're like, hey, Nick, you need to sleep, buddy. Like, you got to do it. You're going to die. You're going to start hallucinating. All sorts of weird shit's going to happen. And he's like, yeah, all right, whatever. And of course he doesn't sleep. He wants to get revenge. He's got a score to settle. It's in the title. So as soon as he gets out, he meets up with his son, and he decides that they're gonna live it up. He's gonna make up for all the years that he wasn't there for his son. So he goes back to his house. He digs up all this money that he got for taking the rap for this crime, and he decides to go back and take out the members of his mob one by one, because he's got a score to settle, if you remember that. And I was really kind of hoping for ridiculousness. There is some of that within the story. It's pretty stupid, because some people might not actually be real people, because he has the insomnia thing. Yeah. So you get to play with that because he won't sleep. He's not doing it. He decides to do everything. He decides to do all of his revenge when he should be sleeping. So, like, throughout the day, he's just doing day-to-day stuff, getting lunch, having drinks, meeting up with people, chit-chatting. And then, like, when it's bedtime, he's like, oh, yeah, got to do my revenge stuff. So he doesn't get any sleep. And, of course, they get to play with that a little bit. But Nicolas Cage never really goes off the rails. Like, I kind of want him to, a little bit at the end. He has some good line delivery. Essentially, he's going after someone, and the person says that they have beef. And Nicolas Cage does not agree that what they have is beef. He doesn't think that that's the right word for it. And that's when he kind of goes off the rails, Cage style,
Bring it.
He doesn't think that label beef is strong enough. So he dresses them down in typical Cage style. So that was kind of fun. But overall, it's just very mediocre.
Yeah, it looks like it. I see a letterboxed review here from Wounded Kite that says needed more score settling.
Yeah. He doesn't settle a lot of scores.
All right. I saw a movie called The Owners, which came out on VOD this weekend. This is directed by Julius Berg. It's a home invasion thriller where you follow a group of young people who decide to break into the local doctor's home. It's this like rich elderly doctor in their town, lives in this really large mansion in the countryside, and they're like, he's got money. He's got a safe in there. It's got a bunch of money in it. We're gonna change our lives. So they break in, and a lot of infighting occurs. A lot of so they can't get into the safe. Safe is like a combination lock, and the one guy thought that it was like an electronic lock originally, and so they can't get into the safe. So they decide that they're going to wait for the doctor and his wife to come home and sort of scare them into opening the safe and threaten them. And obviously nothing goes right for them. And turns out this doctor and his wife have some secrets, some dark secrets held within the walls of this house. And what transpires is a deadly game of cat and mouse.
Oh boy.
This stars Maisie Williams in one of her post Game of Thrones roles. And it's okay. It's not there's some clever things that happen in this. I have a written review up on the site for this. There's a lot of stuff that I did like about it, including the makeup effects, like the gore effects that are in this are really well done. Really, really well done. It's not like overly violent or anything, but when it does turn violent, it looks very real and disturbing. So definitely bonus points for the practical effects in this. The big issues I had with this came at the end when sort of the big reveal happens. I was a little underwhelmed by that. I found it to be a little trite, but overall, it was a pretty good time. I mean, looking at this and comparing it with other similar films like Don't Breathe, I think that Don't Breathe certainly does it better. There was a movie that came out a couple years ago called Villains, or maybe like a year ago. I don't have any concept of time anymore, but that movie sort of did it better too. So this is like sort of on the lower end of these like reverse home invasion movies where the protagonists are the people invading the home. But overall, this maybe very, very light. Recommend on the owners.
Okay, all right. My last one is also a light recommend, and that's Ghost Stories from 2017.
Okay.
Yeah. This actually wasn't that bad. Threw this one a whim because I thought I remember people saying relatively good things about this movie. I think you included.
Indeed. Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
I did like this one.
Yeah. And I think as far as like horror anthologies go, this one worked well for me in the sense that I like this setup where there's this professor who, like, his whole job is debunking all of these supernatural things, these ghost stories. So he gets this job of, here's 3 ghost stories that I couldn't debunk. Best of luck to you, you jerk. Try and debunk them. And then it goes, case 1, case 2, case 3. And I like that setup because I love the fact that, like, none of the cases really, they don't get resolved. It just goes on to the next case. And then all the cases are resolved at the end, like that, like the wraparound thing involves all 3 of the shorts.
Right, yeah.
Which I thought worked pretty well.
Yeah, there's a lot more like connective tissue in all of the individual stories.
Yeah.
Than a lot of anthologies where they're all just very separate.
Exactly. Now, I mean, the way that it's kind of wrapped up in the end there it didn't 100% work for me, but there was a part of me that appreciated being able to connect all these things together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I thought, like, individually, like, the ghost stories were pretty good. They were a little bit creepy. Creeped me out a little bit.
I enjoyed this too, yeah. I generally like horror anthologies, but there's just so many of them out there that are mediocre at best. And so when one pops up like this, that's strong, I really take note of it. Mortuary Tales is one that I really liked that came out recently.
The thing I like about this is that it's an anthology, but not necessarily. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a regular movie, but they in turn made like that anthology aspect of it into the movie itself.
Yeah, it's more like it's not your traditional.
Yeah, because that's the issue that I have with a lot of the anthologies that we've seen before, is that they're so separate that they're always hit or miss, and you kind of feel like it's just a collection of shorts for no reason.
Yeah. I think one thing that helps mitigate that is to have the same directors be handling all of the segments, if you will. Then you don't have that sort of disparity between the like aesthetics and tone and all of that, and everything sort of has the same style.
Yeah. So this is on Hulu. That's where I watched it.
Cool. I want to rewatch this. I want to give this another look. Maybe around Halloween time.
Do it. Yeah, I don't know why we got all of a sudden. We were like, hey, let's be October and just watch some bad horror movies.
It's the season.
We decided to do that.
It's the season.
Let's do it. Fuck it.
The pumpkin spice is back, so it's a good excuse.
I can't get out there and shop for my decorative gourds.
Oh no!
So I got to do something to pass the time. Can't go out in public getting gourds. What if I get COVID shopping for decorative gourds?
That would be an embarrassment.
That's a hellish way to go. How did Kevin get COVID? Oh, he was at the local farmer's market shopping for decorative gourds. Can you fucking imagine?
Oh my god, that'd be hilarious. Okay, let's take a look at what we have on VOD this week. On the 8th, we have Evil Under the Skin. A mother will do anything for her child. Really awful looking poster there. We have Range Runners, Left 4 Dead, Back for Vengeance. Range Runners, check it out. We have The Standard, pushing limits and building bridges at the world's toughest endurance event. Sounds like a documentary. Okay. We have Beats. This is it's a rave movie, I think. Yeah, it takes place in 1994. On the 9th, we have So Much Love to Give. That's going to be on Netflix. On the 11th, we have Red, White, and Wasted. That's a virtual theatrical release. It's a documentary that I checked out at, I think, Tribeca this year, maybe. It's worth a look. It's about mudding. Mudding in Florida.
Mudding.
Yep. You go mudding this weekend?
Oh, God.
That's all I have for VOD. As always, these calendars are being updated constantly, so check them out at filmpulse.net. For the latest Blu-ray this week, we have the Alfred Hitchcock Classics Collection. This includes Rear Window, Vertigo, Psycho, and The Birds. 4 movies, 473 minutes, 4K. There you go.
Four's all around.
Yep.
Huh? All right.
Ghost in the Shell 4K release. That's the 1995 original. It looks like those Alfred Hitchcock movies are being released individually as well. So if you only want to pick up one of them, like Psycho, you can do that. Superman, Man of Tomorrow 4K release. That's one of those DC animated movies. The 2008 Incredible Hulk movie is coming out in 4K. Graveyards of Honor. This is the original 1975 Graveyard of Honor film, and then the 2002 Takeshi Miike remake. Arrow's putting that out. Yeah, First Cows coming out on Blu-ray.
Nice.
True History of the Kelly Gang is coming out. I could not get into this movie. I started this movie with plans to cover it for the site, but man, I just couldn't finish it. I was not into it. I was not into it.
It's weird because I was really excited for that movie, and then like as soon as it came out, my excitement just evaporated.
Yeah, I was into it.
No.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just could not get into it for whatever reason. Just not grabbing me. The Rob Zombie trilogy is coming out. which includes House of a Thousand Corpses, The Devil's Rejects, and Three from Hell.
All right.
If you're looking to have a good weekend party, check that out.
There you go.
The comic from 1985 is coming out on Arrow. The Big Ugly from earlier this year. That's pretty much all I have. What about Criterion's this week?
Criterion's, we have 2 from Jules Dassin. 47's Brute Force, and then 1948's The Naked City. And I just want to pinpoint something here. The Naked City, under special features, both movies have, a slew of special features. But the one bullet point for The Naked City says, footage of director Jules Dassin from a 2004 appearance at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. And that just is humorous to me, because I just immediately imagine this like short video clip that someone takes from a distance of just him at the art museum.
Just walking by, looking at some art.
Because just the way that they put it is like, from an appearance. Like he just appeared at the Museum of Art. Someone got it on their cell phone or something. And there you go. It's like a little 5-second clip.
I'd like to think that's what it is. I think I
really hope it is. I want it to be. That's what I want it to be. If I get confirmation that that's what it is, I will buy this Blu-ray.
There you have it. All right, I think that's going to do it for this week. Thank you so much for listening. You can send us your questions and topics to podcast@filmpulse.net. You can follow us on Twitter @filmpulsenet and @filmpulsekevin. And if you have a minute, consider reviewing us on iTunes. That would be incredibly helpful. For Kevin Rakestraw, my name's Adam Patterson. We'll see you next week.